They got mold in the air vents, brown water in the sinks. I mean, this is challenging for me to even hear. They got mice in the halls, and somehow, despite all of this unacceptable condition that people are forced to engage in, students are the ones getting locked up. It sounds crazy, right? And to be clear, I'm talking about North Carolina Central University. 5 people, including students, even a professor, just caught charges after protesting the unsafe and nasty living conditions on campus. This story has not been in your news feeds. I can almost guarantee you don't know this story. And I wonder why. I mean, the details are crazy. Dorms with busted ACs, broken washers, folk literally getting stuck in elevators. One student even said that she got sick from the mold. But instead of fixing the mess, which would be too much like right, the university decided to call, that's right, the cops. It's absolutely ridiculous and disturbing, but I got more to say. This group of people arrested are now known as the Durham Five. And Atlanta Black Star took some photos of what was going on. I want to show you just a couple of them so you can see what I'm talking about here. This is the police. Look at this shit. Look at this. This is absurd. Look at this. Look at this. I'm going to show you some more. Look at this. This is the reality that these students at Central are dealing with. And now they're trying to paint this as a, quote, unauthorized protest. But the only thing that's unauthorized is folks paying tuition and living like this. One of the organizers, by the way, is being hit with a felony for allegedly kicking a cop. And we know what happens. Cops try to arrest you. If you just defend yourself or act with normal human instincts and say you attack the cop, you know, they'll be dragging you out and your legs are flying. You graze a cop and say, oh, you kicked the cop. I don't know what happened, but that's often the case. Others are being charged just for refusing to disperse. Meanwhile, the school's chancellor says she's advocating for $100 million in repairs. But that money ain't landed yet. And let's be clear, these students, they're not just wilding. They're not out here just tripping. They're not just making trouble. They are trying to live in reasonably healthy, normal conditions. They don't live in filth, and I can't say I blame them. And if you've ever been to an HBCU, or if your children have been to an HBCU, you already know this ain't about just dorms. It's about dignity. It's about keeping this beautiful tradition alive and honoring it. And when Black youth speak up, somehow, instead of saying, hey, maybe they're saying something important, instead of helping respond properly, instead, they call the police. And this is where we got to be honest about some things. You know, it's not just the PWI that does that. It's not just the white institution that does that. We often criminalize our students when they resist after saying that we're building strong leaders. Well, strong leadership says when the conditions are like this, we resist, we point it out, we fight, we protest. So instead of criminalizing these students, why don't we deal with the issue? And also, since we're talking about it, hey, Donald Trump, since you say you're the HBCU boss, that you've done more for HBCUs than anybody else, and when all you Negroes that were out here parroting that ridiculous take, why don't you ask Donald Trump why they haven't sent these funds, why they haven't bailed him out, why they haven't supported them? This is shameful. But family, this is why it's also important to support HBCUs. It's not enough to wear the hat. It's not enough to rock the t-shirt. It's not enough to show up at homecoming. If you're going to be about this HBCU, like the thing I say about Black Greek letter organizations, if you're going to be about these organizations, it can't just be an affective connection. It can't be just an emotional connection. It has to be a financial connection. Because if it ain't that, then what we talking about? If it ain't that, then what are we talking about? I can't say that enough. All right. Let's move on to another story. By the way, if you have a different take, let me know. Yeah, in case that this country is a Ponzi scheme. Yo, you ain't wrong. You ain't wrong. Oh, Harry Hill dropped a great question in the chat. You know what? I'm gonna take that question on right now before we even move to the next story. Do you think these are the best of times or the worst of times for Blacks in America? Salute. Here's what I'll tell you. Let me start with the latter first. It's definitely not the worst of times. You can't tell me that any condition we're facing right now is comparable to Jim Crow. And you can't tell me that any condition we're facing is comparable to legalized enslavement. Knowing what our ancestors have been through, it would be disrespectful to their memory to say that what we're going through is worse. And for this to be the worst of times, it would have to be worse than the previous time. So I'm saying no. No. But is it the best of times? That's interesting. If you're talking about access to capital, if you're talking about education, I mean, there's a case that can be made that this is the most prosperous, the most fruitful, the most powerful Black people have ever been. And I think that's a good argument. I don't think that's a wrong argument. But I think there's more we got to think about, right? We got to also think, what is the moment where we've been the most assured of victory? Where's the moment where we were most poised to resist and to create revolution? What was the moment where we were the most cohesive and coherent and together as a community? And that might not be now. We could look at moments like the 60s. We could look at moments like the 50s. We could look at moments like the 70s. So while I think we have the best economic conditions and the most prosperity by most traditional measures that we've ever had, this moment is complicated and messy. And if you mean including a forward-looking vision, because I'm looking at what Adrian says, right? I don't think we've had the best of times yet. If you say this is the best we will ever have, then I'd say absolutely not, because I'm always looking forward. I'm always looking to history as a guide of what's possible, but I'm also looking like, yo, we've been through so much. We've succeeded and overcome so much. We could do so much more. We could do so much more. So let's do it. You dig? Let's